Hello, this is Jolinda Osborne. The sounds k and g are the subject of this lesson. Now, k and g are plosive sounds, meaning again, as with some of the other plosives, that you make the sound with a slight puff or explosion in your mouth. And you'll feel that, particularly in the k, which is voiceless. Therefore, there's no vibration in the throat or in the chest. And with the sound g, there is some vibration. It's a little bit of a grunt sound that you'll begin to feel as you make the sound. Let's move on to the first slide as to how to pronounce the sounds k and g. This first slide then will show you the pronunciation of these two sounds. What you want to do is to open your mouth slightly, and you want to touch the back of your tongue to the soft palate. Now the soft palate is that softer part on the roof of your mouth further back. Watch, I'll show. Back there. The hard palate is the front of the roof of your mouth. You know that place where you might burn the roof of your mouth if you eat pizza that's too hot or hot cheese? So we're talking further back in the mouth for this sound. Then what you want to do here is to build up air pressure in your mouth. And it's behind the tongue, and then you will quickly release that pressure, and you'll move your tongue away and then make the sound k. Can you hear that? K. So the back of my tongue is high, and then it presses away sharply. Now give it some voice, give it some vibration, and you'll make the sound g. They're quite distinctive, but they're easy to confuse by many speakers. Let's look at some problem areas in making this sound k and g. All right, the first problem, as you can see here on this next slide, is the confusion when pronouncing k and g. Now remember that k is voiceless, so you don't really want to make too much sound here. Say it after me. Now give it some vibration, some voice, and make a g sound. This difficulty occurs for people, particularly at the end of words. Many of you from any language group, particularly those from Asian language groups, will often not hold enough air in your mouth to say the g sound. So you run out of air. If I'm saying the word jog, let's say, you might end up saying jock. You see that? So it's really the wrong sound that you're making because you're not giving enough air to it. Keep enough air in your lungs to say jog. All right? The next problem that you see here on this slide is the omission of the sound k with words that are spelled with two C's or words that are spelled with EX. Here on the slide you'll see these following words. I'm going to say them and give you time to say them after me, and I'll show you what I mean. Accept. Accident. Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm actually saying accident. Many people mispronounce the sounds and say accident or accept. That's wrong. You've got to get that slight k sound here. And to do that, you have to put the back of your tongue, as I said before, up high against the roof of your mouth and make it accent. Just slow it down. Give it a try. It'll come. Let's continue with these words. Excite. Extra. Exposure. Accessory. Success. Oh, that's a particularly difficult word. Many people have trouble with that because you have to go from a sa, excess, back to some sas. The sound s, which is a hard one, we'll cover in a separate lesson. One more time. Success. Accept. I'd suggest going back over this slide and practicing that sound again. Let's move on, however, to the next slide, which has some contrast pairs here. The sounds k and g. All right, here's some words. I'll give you time to say them after me, and I suggest, as I do with all lessons, that if you have the capability of recording your own voice, do so. That will enable you to hear me and to hear you make the sounds. Let's begin. Coal, goal, crow, grow, ankle, angle, sacking, sagging. Can you hear that? Let's pause a moment. Sacking, sagging, ga ga ga. Make that deep sound. That's usually the harder sound for people. Let's continue. Ache, egg, luck, lug, snack, snag, buck, bug. All right. On the right side of this slide are some practice words that you can do on your own. Give them a try. You'll notice if you make enough g sounds that your voice will get a little bit sore. I know that when I do classes and teach this lesson, at the end my voice gets sore too, because that g is a deep sound. Can you see it's way back here? So it takes some energy in order to make that sound. Let's move on. The next foil gives you some practice with words commonly used at work. You'll encounter these, I'm sure, in your work situation and in life in general. I'll say the words going across and down and give you time to say them as well. Chemistry, architect, backpack. There you've got two, backpack together. Next line. Graphic, flag, colleague, case, increase, strike, group, regulate, analog. You hear that g at the end? Analog. Customer, inquire, activate, gross, rigorous, fragment, exclude, successful, criteria. Here's that successful again. Let's go back to that. That's such a tough word. I'm always helping people with that sound. One more time. Successful. Make sure that k comes through. All right, this next slide goes into a rule that usually works in English. As I've said in other lessons, we have very few rules for American English. There's so many exceptions. But this rule usually works, and it has to do with how you pronounce words that have the letter X in them, because there are two pronunciations. So let's go through that rule, and I'll give you some examples. The first part of the rule says this. I'm reading from the slide, and you can follow. If the vowel sound following the letter X is stressed, the letter X is pronounced gz. Okay? So I've underlined here on the slide what I mean by that. Here we have the first word, exactly. Can you hear that? It's exactly. Why? Because the sound following the X is stressed. A few more words. Say these after me. Exempt, example, exist. You should be able to hear that egs sound. Okay, the next part of the rule says this. When the letter X is followed by a pronounced consonant or an unstressed vowel, it's pronounced ks. All right, that's the k sound in sa. So here's some words. Exit, Now, many people mispronounce that and they say exit. That's wrong. It's exit. Explain. Excellent. Execute. The next part of the rule says this: words ending in the letter X are always pronounced X, the K sound. Here's some words. Fax, a word used all the time in business. Box. Wax. Fix. Can you hear those? X sounds. So this is why the sound K and G are important. They not only come with the words or the letters K and G, but with words that have other letters in them as well. And there's a lot to remember here. You might want to go back to this rule. All right, moving on then to some difficult blends. Now the sound K by itself or G by itself might be difficult, but they're particularly difficult when you combine them with other letters. And on this slide, I have put together some combinations. What I'd like to do is read down the list slowly, give you time to make the sounds. So the first part of the column on the left-hand side has the combination K and L. Remember, with K, it's K, K. I'll raise my mouth here so you can see K. And then you curl your tongue up to say La. Kla, kla. That's tough. Give it a go. Client. Claim. Cycle. We'll come back to this in the lesson on La, and you'll get more practice. Going down the column, the sound K and R. The difference being, with the sound R, you do not touch the tip of your tongue to the top of your mouth. Keep it rolled up but away. So it's K, K. All right, let's try some. Crew. Recruit. Create. And again, the sound R is covered in a separate lesson, and you'll have more practice with those difficult blends. Moving to the second column, the sound G and L. Now you're giving it some voice. Many people find this easier because you're going from voiced to voiced sound. Okay? G, L, gla, gla. Practice that. Gla. All right. Few words. Glass. Global. Neglect. Got to be careful and make sure to get that here, right back here, and then roll your tongue up and touch. Gull. Now, gra is the same thing as with kra. You do not touch the tongue tip when making the ra part of that sound. Here's some words. Grew. Regret. Grateful. If you fail to pronounce that ra sound, then you have something like gateful. It's a different word entirely, not right. And if you fail to pronounce the ga, you have rateful, which is the wrong word too. So these combos, as I call them, are difficult. Let's move to the right side of this slide. Now, when you have words that have a k and a t after them, you must say the k sound and then touch the tip of your tongue to the place right behind the front teeth. That place, as I said earlier, where you might burn yourself if you eat too hot food. Right here. So let's try those words. Active. Product. Impact. You hear what I'm doing? I'm not just saying impact, I'm saying impact. Keep going down the column to the g and the z sound. example, exhaust, bugs. Can you hear? You're doing a g, and now you're adding an s as though there were many bugs in the system, and you're doing a gz. Once again, bugs. And the last column, the k and the w sound. This is difficult for some people, particularly those who don't make the w sound. The w is covered in a separate lesson. But we're doing this. Watch my mouth. Can you see that? I'm going from back of the tongue like this, and I'm moving my mouth in like that. All right, try some. Quiet, request, qualify. So you've got to move your mouth. Can't have a lazy mouth to make these sounds. You've got to do lots of movement here. And the last group is with g and d. Now this usually occurs at the end of words when you have an ed ending with a g followed by an ed. So let's try those. Logged, flagged, lugged. Can you see that? G and d. All right. So what we have here then are the sounds k and g. Two plosive sounds that you'll want to practice on your own in combination with other sounds that give you trouble. This ends this lesson. What I'd like to suggest is that you go back, review the lesson if this is difficult for you, compare your pronunciation to mine, listen to Americans as they speak, continue to practice these and other sounds, and I'm sure you'll improve.